Good. I know it's always been so much to build on. Every time we get together, we so much stuff. My son more, try to help me. Try to help me, but the Holy Grace. Thank you. So much goes on, man, but what I wanted to kind of build on today was the aspect of a concept that our forefathers really built on a lot, which was what telemetry is and how it affects us, and what mystical or spiritual properties develop from it, and what it basically means. If there was no telemetry, if we didn't understand the basics of telemetry, we wouldn't really understand. Like if somebody asked you where you live, you couldn't give them a street sign or something. You could tell them, okay, well, it's 3 blocks down, on the left, you know, by the building, blah, blah, blah. That basically means the distance between where you are right now and where you're trying to get to. Okay? So, when the host of Christ put it out there and said that the kingdom of God is within, right? He was giving you the telemetry between the part of yourself that exists in the physical present, what we call reality, which is really a fiction agreed upon, and where you are within the kingdom of God, right? Now, a lot of people, we know, we come up in different cycles and different schools of thought as we incarnate here to be physical, to be so-called human beings. But because we're spiritual beings having a human experience, it puts a different spin on what it is we need to achieve while we're down here. A lot of us get caught up in the wrong stuff when we're here because we've forgotten the purpose and why we incarnated in the first place. And what this reality does is it creates a farther distance between your thoughts and what you really think. You understand? A lot of times you could be somewhere and you could be walking down the street, and as you pass somebody, this person may say something about food, and then for some reason you get hungry. You know what I'm saying? And then as soon as you get hungry, you turn around, there's a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Chinese store, a Rib Shack, or whatever else you want to eat. But there's no fruit stand or anything like that. Because the distance in which you put the thought in terms of the intent of the hunger into the reality is bounced back on you based on the fictions that create thought forms, right? Fictitious realities that inhibit what you want. So if you want to eat, you want to have something that's going to sustain you, give you sustenance. But fast food is not sustenance. Fast food is fast food. It's in and it's out, right? So when you haket, which is the Tunisian word for fall out to, mentally, when you haket for a certain thing, when you haket for a certain thing mentally, what this reality does is it has these little frequency fences around, so that pure intent of wanting to be sustained through food now is put up into the universe and now comes back down in the form of Burger King, McDonald's, Rib Shack, whatever. See what I'm saying? So what happens is because these things are convenient, right, we sometimes have to deal with where we at. You know what I mean? Like my great-grandmother used to say, give him what his hand called for. You know what I mean? So when you're in a situation and you can't get nothing else, then you got to deal with what you got to deal with. However, we always find ourselves in that position, and the people with the less spiritual or celestial significance have the most access to all of the stuff that don't even work for them. Crystals don't work for white folk. eating greens and all that stuff, that don't work for white folk. And when I say white folk, I'm not just talking about people who consider themselves Caucasians. Because technically the people that we call ourselves Caucasians today, that's not even them. A Caucasian is really a person today that we would call a Hindu or an Indian person, which is where they get the term Aryan from. So really the people that we talk about as clear people or white people, they don't even have a physical name in this reality. So what they have to do is circumvent and get other names to couch their names, to couch themselves in order to not be whisked away. Because anything that is not of God, right, will go the way of those who have the word of God taken from them. So what we sometimes do is we create distances between ourselves and the things that we really want because we don't understand what it is we are actually putting out into the universe to get. And this, for instance, telemetry is basically 3 different words. It's tele, me, and try, right? So tele is communication, telepathy, telekinesis, telecommunications, telephone, whatever, right? But it comes from the Latin, which means to speak, right? Me is an aspect of the ego, right? Or what some people call the id, right? And then there's another part of it called the superego, which is really not an ego at all. And then try, we mean, basically it can be, today when we use the word try, we're talking about like we're working to do something. But try also comes as another way of saying trig, like trigonomic. Right? So telemetry, as we understand it today, is basically another way of what we would call navigation. We as original people have something in our DNA helix and our RNA helix called, that some people refer to as flawless navigation. What this means is that you could be somewhere and be lost and still find where you're going to go. You know how they always say drunk man always find his way home?
It's true.
That's true.
It's true.
You know what I'm saying? For those people who have ever been, blasted like that, and you get home. You know what I'm saying? But you might not get home now because the cracker created something called drunk driving laws that basically puts you in a position now that you have to be conscious when you're driving. But you can't be conscious when you're drunk. That's because you're drunk. Now, I'm not saying everybody needs to go out and drink and drive. I'm not saying it. I'm saying, though, that we can get what the people in the hood call slizzard to the point that we could be in a situation and be driving whatever, be kind of not totally inebriated, but to the point where the part of us that is the id or the superego, it kind of navigates you where you need to go. That's that flawless navigation. So too many people was doing that. You know what I'm saying? So what the cracker had to do was find a way. You always got to find a way to inhibit what it is you're doing. So what he does is he creates seatbelt laws and all of that, right? To lock you into the vehicle now, so that way you become literal parts of the interface of the mechanism, turning you into a vehicle, right? But if you was to get into a car accident, God forbid, and you didn't have your seatbelt on, the only person that's probably going to get hurt is you. It's not like, you know what I'm saying, they can charge you if you get into the accident, you get thrown out the car for reckless endangerment. They can't do that because you hurt yourself. Yet still, we don't understand the way that they meaning communicate to us on a certain level, because there's an aspect of us that really doesn't realize that 90% of the communication we get from these crackers is slowed down. Because you're speaking to people that don't have melanin in their vocal cords. You're speaking to people that don't have melanin in their retinas. So you will never know what it's like to walk out in the street. Everybody got this? Yeah. You will never really know what it's like to walk out in the street and feel the sun on your skin the way that these people feel. You don't understand, or what we don't understand is that right now there's 2 suns out there.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? It's not when you're in a binary solar system now. You know what I mean? And you have been really since about 2002. They made a movie about it called 2010, the year we made contact, which was a sequel to the movie 2001 by Stanley Kubrick, the guy that did Eyes Wide Shut, who right after that he did that movie that killed him. So, because there's a binary sun out there now, you have double the magnetic, what they call inertia, emitting from the suns. However, because they got chemtrails and overcasts and stuff like that, they have it up there and make you feel like you don't see it. right? But I've had pictures of it. I thought I brought that. But I have it on the Dark Times Elementary DVD. But pictures of it, while I was downtown, literally downtown Brooklyn in front of Dr. J's with a cell phone camera around 12 midday. You can get it on your cell phone camera, but it's very hard to get it with these digital cameras, right? Because the cell phone, the rubber inside the cell phone is a magnetic polymer which attracts the UV from the double suns. So it can pick up the thing from it, the image of it. See what I'm saying? But regular cameras don't have that, right? This is why they need to get into Rwanda and the Congo and Uganda and all of that, because the rubber there is so rich. It's kind of like the rubber that the Moanthon, also known as the Olmex in America, was making. And we was using that rubber when we was making these spaceships and stuff like that. So essentially, reality itself is like this. Okay, you know, everybody's seen a donut, right? This right here will represent dark matter, which is the black woman, right? All of this outside of that represents dark energy, aka the black man, as the physical archetype of the energies that derive from all of this. All of this is dark matter. Excuse me. Yeah, all of this is dark matter. This right here is creation. But just like a donut, there's nothing in the middle of it. The only real part of the creation is the energy around it, which is the dark matter, right? The dark energy is what allows the dark matter to expand and manifest itself, just like the man is the one who puts the seed into the female, and then the female bears the seed, right? And then brings the seed into existence, into creation. This part, what we call creation, is actually represents only 0.01% of what we perceive to be reality as a whole. So if this was, you know, they have charts, like graphs. This would be dark energy. This would be dark matter, right? This would be, let's say, atoms, you know, other, you know, particles or whatever. And this little sliver right here represents where we all are now, right now. This is physical reality. This little sliver right here. So as you can see, there's a whole part of existence that we're not participating in on a conscious level right now, but we participate in it every day in a place we call the dream, right? So just like creation, right? If we look at it as a donut, the donut would be represented as the woman, right? The person picking up the donut would necessarily be the man. The ingestation of the donut, right, is man and woman working together, right, to internalize a being that would then come into this thing. But just like the donut, there is nothing in the middle. So therefore, what we perceive to be reality is really just a bunch of vectors and angles that really don't exist. How can we so prove that? You can so prove that by anything that you want to exist in reality, you can make happen. How do you do that? You do that. You ever been in a situation where you think about somebody and they call you? You ever been in a situation where you you walking down the street and you ain't see somebody a man long and they say, yo, I was just talking about you. Yeah. You ever been in a situation where you've been in a place and you feel like you've been there before, but you've never physically been there before? All of that is representative of the aspect of you that is larger than the you that everybody sees. This, in Kemet, was called the aton, where you get the word aton meant from, right? So aton meant, right? This, when you see it in Kemet, it had a bunch of hands at the end of each joint. What this is, though, is Caucasian occultists, like, it don't even matter, but some of the ones from the Golden Dawn, OTO, these crackers or whatever, they think, they call this the oversoul. Right? And what the oversoul is it is the aspect of you that is connected directly to the archetype of the energy that we call God. We are all children of God because God is our father, mother. Right? In that, though, just as our Father has many mansions in his house, right? You have many mansions that exist in each one of these houses. So what that means is that in each one of these rays represents a different version of you in a mirror reality working simultaneously with this one. So just as you are here in this physical space, but this physical space is not existent because physical reality is really just the holographic projection of something that happened in the past of a super being that we are all physical spiritual, and celestial relatives of. Everybody following what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you look like you because this is how you would look if you were physical in a place called Harlem right now, where we at. This is how you projected yourself here, from here. So in this reality, let's say the consciousness level you are at was like right here. Maybe in this reality your consciousness level is here. Maybe in this reality is there, so forth and so on. You know, you have different levels of consciousness depending upon your incarnation and depending upon how close to the true aspect of yourself you get to in whatever reality you exist in to be able to assimilate this understanding about yourself. So in this reality, you're probably right here because we're even having a discussion about this. Therefore, if that's the case, it is now possible that when you return to the great all, you are now returning with the knowledge of the all that you attained in this life. Therefore, that knowledge goes up here and now can come back down to all of the lives simultaneously and then raise all of the vibration of the different views life force up to meet the truth of who and what the Creator really is. This is why they want you to believe that you're a human being having a spiritual experience. You see what I'm saying? First. Because then you'll only occupy a sliver of reality, and the rest of reality around you, you will not be able to partake of, because that is the true kingdom of God. So when Yehoshua, or Eosus, or you know, whatever name they want to call the brother that came and said, I'm gonna die, let's say, on a cross, right? The story is he died on the cross for everybody's sins. The word sin is another word, is a word that means moon, right? Another definition for the word sin is debt, right? So when the brother, however you want to talk about it, went through the situation where he was, let's say, crucified, right? And he died for the sins, or died for the debt, right? That mankind had incurred for allowing a malefic entity to exist among them, which then forced them to become more and more material, less spiritual, right? What began to happen is that we as a people began to put more emphasis on holding this devil, these crackers down, and building pyramids and everything else instead of building the pyramids of the soul and the mind. You know? We're here, but we're not meant to stay. It's like we as in the conscious community, we talk about Africa a lot, right? I don't have no problem with that. Africa's a great place. But if we're being critical and scientists, we all understand that there is no place in the world called Africa, right? We do understand that. That it's not like when you get off the plane, there's a big word across the damn continent that say Africa. It's not real. That is a designation that was given by a group of people to marginalize your thinking to one part of the world. Again, cutting off the telemetry, the distance between yourself, who you really are, and who you're about to be. What do they say in Kemet on the walls? No physician, know thyself, or physician, heal thyself. Know thyself, right? Crowley said, do what thou wilt. But he didn't make that up. You know what I'm saying? Like people act like up into the book of the law, nobody ever said that but him. This is how these crackers is in people's mind. They make you think that they existed longer than they had. Yeah. How could they exist at a time when they only been bathing for 250 years? They just started bathing. They just started cooking their food. They just stopped growing fur. Keeping it real. Like white folk don't have hair, they have fur. That's fur. That's why it's so straight. That's why it don't. Anything that is perfect spirals. See? You know what I'm saying? Anything that isn't, don't. You know what I'm saying? So anything that is perfect also, though, passes away. Because it's not about being perfect, it's about perfecting oneself. And the act of perfection, or perfecting, is what they, in masonry, what they call smooth, creating a smooth astra. You know what I mean? The part of the stone, the part of the body and the soul that has to be hewn and refined to the point of being presentable to become a cornerstone or something. You see what I'm saying? So how can we have a direct experience with our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters, and we can't even tell the pig, hey, I don't want to do that? Or we can't even tell, you know, our mate, hey, stop yelling at me. You know what I mean? Or we're in situations where we find ourselves stifling and bringing down our consciousness to accommodate a damn fool. You have a lot of brothers that's out here. Purporting to know what it means to get into the dark arts and these type of things, man. And they don't have no conception of it. And the way that I don't is because they coming at me or coming at you with the perspective that if you don't get it from them, you're not going to get it. That is the first clue that this person is a charlatan.
Yeah.
You know, you have a bunch of these fake magicians out here, these fake, you know, so-called Freemasonic masters that don't know nothing. They don't know nothing. You know what I'm saying? And the way that you know that they don't is because they got to act like they got a secret that you don't know. No, you can go right down to Barnes & Noble and get
You're right.
But when you really start getting into what dark matter and dark energy really is, darkness is, okay, Einstein put this out, right? E equals mc squared, right? Now, not only is this wrong, right? They created an entire subject of study based on improper theory. This is wrong because it is under the assumption that energy equals mass basically can, you know, transcend into light. So that is to say that light is the fastest thing out there. It's not true. If light was so fast, how come it got to escape darkness? So that means darkness is way faster than light, right? Because if that was the case, light wouldn't have to escape it. That means anytime you project the light, darkness is right there. Anytime you project the light, darkness is right there. You know what I'm saying? So we're the dark people, right? Black people, right? How is it that darkness now is evil? See what I'm saying? When darkness is really the strongest part of the light, and the light is the strongest part of the darkness, because when they work together, dark matter, dark energy, it creates things. When you split them apart and try to give them individual jobs, that takes away from the whole, what you are now doing is practicing divisiveness, which is what the cracker got to do, because he can't do anything that, when you are at a high frequency, you don't have no distraction. The minute your frequency begins to get a little lower, that's when all distractions start coming in. So the minute that we was really into hip-hop, right, and really creating all types of stuff, they said, okay, they took away the whole music programs out of the hood. Nobody got instruments. What do? After the blackout in 1977, all of the brothers ran in and ransacked Crazy Eddie's and Radio Shack and all that, stole all the 2 turntables and microphones, and now we created a whole $1 billion industry from nothing. You know what I'm saying? Then it got to a point where brothers was like, okay, great, I don't know how to play an instrument, but I know what sounds good. So I'm gonna take a drum beat from James Brown, bass line from Freddie Hubbard, horn from Miles Davis, treble from Tico Puente or whatever, and then I'm gonna turn that into a song. See what I'm saying? So what the devil gotta do, he gotta create laws against sampling. Right? And what these boule assholes that was doing music, excuse me, children, boule assholes was doing with the music, whatever, they ran right behind the cracker saying, yeah, these people stealing our music. But these brothers, these young brothers, my generation was the one that resurrected these people.
Yeah, right.
My generation, if it wasn't for hip-hop, my people, I wouldn't know who Fred Hampton, excuse me, Fred Hubbard, Art Blakey, Muddy Waters, Johnny Farmer. I know all these people from sampling records, you know? And then one day, but it get to a point where you listening to all of that stuff, and you know, initially you listening to it for what you want. But the more I would listen to it, the more I would get into what they were saying. See what I'm saying? And these brothers was kicking heavy dark matter science. People like Johnny Farmer and Muddy Waters, these people was going in when they talk about the blues, right, and all of that. They're talking about the same blue that makes Almond Ra blue. That's why he's seen in that. That's the form of the melanin that has a higher copper content in it.
Brother ASEER, let me get you to pause for like 20